Robocop Rogue City was my game, or one of my games, of the year of 2023. I loved the game. Was it perfect? No. It didn't run perfectly. It had some bugs, but it was this game that preserved the heart and the feeling of this dystopian world from the titular 80s movies, from Robocop. And there were a lot of attempts to recapture the magic of Robocop over the years, and a lot of them flopped. You know, even things like Robocop 3, the movie, I think, was not at all on the level of the first two. You had things like limited series and TV shows, stuff like that. They weren't all bad, but I really think that there was always this attempt to recapture that lightning in a bottle of Robocop, and the essence was, it was hard to replicate. It was hard to continue. But Robocop Rogue City, I really believe, did that. And that's why I'm really excited that there is a sort of sequel coming to this game. And normally you'd call this just an expansion, but it is a standalone additional game expansion. And what I mean by that is it's essentially like a game. You can play it on its own without buying Rogue City if you wanted to. So say you switched platforms, anything like that, you don't have to buy Rogue City again. But this is going to be an actual extended narrative that adds on to Robocop and operates as a sequel to Rogue City called Unfinished Business. It's supposed to come out actually later this year in 2025. I'm very excited for it, so we're going to take a couple minutes to look at it and what it's going to be. I try to be selective on game news here because otherwise I'd be making like 12 videos every day because there's always something new. But with Robocop, it's something I couldn't pass up talking about because I absolutely love the original game. So that said, I do have a question of the day for you, which is, have you played Rogue City? What are your thoughts? And also, what do you think about this kind of game? You know, this like action hero or movie-based game from the 80s, 90s, whatever. Is there another character that you'd want to see get a similar treatment to Robocop? I know we got Terminator a while back, so I'm interested to hear that as well. Now, this appears to be inspired directly by things like Dredd, and by that I mean the film. Because, you know, Judge Dredd obviously is a long, expansive character. He's had crossovers with everyone, including Robocop in the comics, but Dredd, the film, is largely about going up this mega complex apartment structure that's been taken over by terrorists, essentially, or a gang, however you want to, you know, sum it up. And Robocop, this seems to be following that kind of action hero template, where essentially it's about Robocop actually fighting Detroit's gangs and moving up this tower to take out all of these different people. So essentially it's in OCP's latest project, Omni Tower, which is this huge housing complex designed especially to provide for the needs of the residents of old Detroit. Now, something I like too is that this does play into the narrative and the actual struggle of Robocop Rogue City, because all the stuff about what will happen to old Detroit, what will happen to all these people who are being displaced, all that stuff, you know, what are you actually fighting for? Those are all things that play into that original narrative. They are very, very important. And so to see them building on that in a sort of sequel is really, really cool. But when a group of highly trained mercenaries armed with cutting-edge weapons takes control of the building and turns it into a deadly fortress, Robocop must take action and put a stop to their plans to undermine law and order. Now you face new enemies as well with high-tech threats. There's flying drones now, exploding bots, anti-personnel turrets. Every floor is riddled with deadly traps and heavily armed elite troops. Expect to face minigun-toting armored squads, special forces equipped with jetpacks, or even katana-wielding foes who look more machine than man. Now, there is going to be a return of old weapons along with new ones, like for example, they mentioned the cryo cannon is a new weapon here, and so you're going to be using basically things from the original game, but also some new stuff as well. One of the biggest highlights to me here is actually the ability to play as Alex Murphy, and here's why. Alex Murphy is obviously described as a good cop in the movies. We don't actually see him do anything before he's Robocop except get killed in terms of, you know, the original films. And I think that that's kind of too bad. because in general, when you get to these questions of who matters more, Alex Murphy or his new identity as Robocop, or would he have even been a good cop without the abilities of Robocop, I think that it doesn't add to that discussion that we see him for 5 to 10 minutes and then he dies immediately. So with this, I think it's nice to actually see Alex Murphy doing stuff. And it doesn't look like boring stuff either. It's police raids, missions like that. Now, that's not the majority or the entirety of the experience. This is obviously a Robocop standalone game that is an expansion to the original story, but it does actually add on to that human element of the character. This is described in the synopsis as experience unique missions with familiar faces which reveal more of the storyline of unfinished business. Before becoming Robocop, he was plain old police officer Alex Murphy, brave and resolute but all too vulnerable on the beat in old Detroit. Discover a different side of the legendary law enforcer voiced by Peter Weller, which again, I'm glad Peter Weller is coming back to do this. In general, like, there's not much here that I'm not excited for. I do hope that even though this is a sequel, you know, it's going to be smaller, I'm sure, than the original game. The price has not been revealed yet. It is just essentially coming summer 2025, and it is that standalone expansion type of game. Something like Far Cry Blood Dragon comes to mind for me, where you have a game that operates on its own. It doesn't need the original game, but it's built off of that original game. And so I expect the price to be lower than the original. However, that hasn't been revealed yet. And also, in general, the exact release date hasn't been revealed yet other than Q3 2025. And so I'm kind of thinking this is going to be smaller in scope, but big enough to justify being a standalone game, not just a DLC add-on that you need the original for. So that's already something positive. In that way, it is a direct sequel. However, it's not something like Robocop Rogue City 2. It's almost like Robocop Rogue City 1.5, in my opinion, from everything that I am seeing, where it's this middle step. And it does make me wonder if we will ever get just a full-on 2 or a full-on sequel to Rogue City that's going to expand those ideas even more, maybe in another engine, or maybe, you know, just with an entirely new story. I'm not really sure, but I would really love to see that. It's interesting because it's like, I know some people say, well, this isn't a sequel, but the fact that it's standalone, takes place after the narrative, adds on to all these different elements of Alex's life, of his life as Robocop, all that stuff. I mean, it is by all intents and purposes a sequel that is just aimed to be smaller in scope than the base game, not even requiring it for play. I'm excited. I didn't really expect this to happen. I wanted it to happen, but it didn't really seem like they were that interested in adding on to their games or even doing sequels to some of these games based off of these licensed heroes of the past. So I'm glad to see that this is going to come out. I hope that if this does well enough, maybe it pushes to a full-on numbered sequel. But again, we'll see. If this is something you are interested in, I highly recommend supporting it, because Robocop, he's not like Call of Duty, okay? He's not like Halo or Battlefield or any of these other shooters that have guaranteed sequels. You know, this is something that we got one game for in many, many, many years. So the fact that it was already good, to get more from those same people in that same world, I think is just a positive in general. Now, if you're interested in supporting the channel, I have Amazon affiliate links, which will be in the description and the pinned comment, to some stuff you might like on my storefront, from DC and Marvel Comics type properties to horror things to gamer fans. There's a lot of stuff you might like over there. We do also have our own store, cosmobunny.shop. Discount code DJAY123 gets you 10% off your first purchase of coasters, keychains, trays, and more. These are made from recycled paper from comics, manga, magazines, and more that cannot be sold because it's damaged. We take that, we transform it into new art for your home in a new transformative medium, and we recycle the rest. So I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching. This channel has been kind of rough lately because just in general, the YouTube algorithm changes have made it so a lot of people haven't seen it. So if you enjoyed this video, you want to interact with it, share it with a friend, or subscribe and come back for more. We appreciate that, and we love having you around. All our other channels are down there in the description. Have a fantastic day, And as always, everyone, stay shui.